When Keanu Reeves quietly dines at his own restaurant, a nervous waitress slips him a note. "Don't eat the steak." Her warning unravels a deadly plot hidden inside his trusted staff, and her split-second courage becomes the reason he walks out alive. I still remember how ordinary the night looked at first. The restaurant glowed with warm light, the kind that makes strangers feel like family, and nobody had any idea that in less than an hour one simple choice would decide whether a man lived or died. It was one of those imagined nights that feel almost more real than reality, the kind you could swear you've lived through in a dream. Keanu Reeves walked through the front doors of his own restaurant with his head down, baseball cap in hand, nodding shyly at the hostess as if he were a guest and not the owner whose name lit up the sign outside. He never liked the attention. He liked the people. The staff felt it the second he stepped in. The line cooks straightened up, the busboys moved a little faster, but it wasn't fear. It was respect. He had helped build this place dish by dish, idea by idea. He'd been there on quiet mornings when the only sound was the hiss of coffee machines, helping roll silverware, asking dishwashers about their kids, and sharing cheap takeout on overturned crates because he didn't want anyone to eat alone. Tonight, though, he looked tired in a way that went beyond long shooting days and late-night rehearsals. He slipped out of his jacket, smiled at the hostess, and asked, almost apologetically, "Mind if I sit in the corner? I just want to try the new steak without causing trouble." His voice was soft, the same one he used when he asked the night cleaner about her sick father last week. From across the room, Mia saw him before anyone called her name. Table 12, corner booth. Dark t-shirt, slightly messy hair, that same quiet smile that never quite reached his eyes when he was exhausted. She felt the familiar mix of warmth and nerves bloom in her chest. Not the dizzy, fangirl excitement she'd had the first month she worked there, but something steadier, deeper. Respect. Gratitude. And yes, if she admitted it, a small, secret kind of crush that had grown from the way he treated people when no cameras were around. Mia tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and checked her apron. Pen, order pad, backup pen, folded receipt with a reminder. Pay Mom's clinic bill by Friday. Her feet ached from the double shift, and she could already hear her younger brother's voice in her head asking if she'd be home in time to quiz him for his math test. But when Keanu was in the room, her exhaustion always loosened a little, like someone had opened a window and let in better air. She walked to his table, and he looked up with that shy, almost boyish expression that made him seem like anything but a famous actor. "Hey, Mia," he said, remembering her name without glancing at a list. "How's your mom doing?" The question hit her heart like it always did. He had asked once months ago when he'd overheard her whispering to the pharmacist on the phone during her break. And somehow, he never forgot. "She's better this week," Mia replied, trying to keep her voice even. "The new meds are working, I think." He nodded, relief softening his eyes. "I'm glad. Let me know if the restaurant can help with anything, seriously." He meant it. That was the thing about him. Words that from most people would sound like polite noise came from him like a promise. But Mia had pride and bills stacked like mountains and a fear of needing too much from anyone. So she just smiled and said, "Thank you, sir. Can I get you your usual?" "Not tonight." He leaned back, glancing toward the open kitchen. "I want to try the new steak we added to the menu. If it's terrible, I'll pretend it's great so Marco doesn't get his heart broken." They both laughed, a short, easy sound. It made the night feel safe. As she walked away with his order, Mia felt the quiet weight of her life settle on her shoulders again. Her mother's medication, her brother's tuition, the rent that always landed like a punch near the end of the month. She de-learned to carry all of it with a straight back and a tired smile. Kindness, she had decided years ago, was something you gave even when life didn't give it to you first. Maybe especially then. She pushed through the swinging kitchen door into the heat and noise. Pans clanged, oil hissed, voices rose and fell like music. At the center of it all stood Marco, the head chef. Broad shoulders, tattooed forearms, a temper that flared fast but cooled just as quickly when Keanu stepped in with a calm word and a crooked grin. Marco loved the food like it was his own blood. "Table 12, Mia called over the steam. "He wants the new steak." Marco turned, and for a second she saw a flash of something she'd never seen in his eyes before. Not pride, not stress, but something darker. It vanished so quickly she almost thought she imagined it. "The special cut?" he asked, wiping his hands on his apron. "Yeah, medium rare." He nodded, then looked past her at someone near the back line. "You heard that? Make it perfect." A man Mia didn't recognize stepped forward from the grill station, already pulling a glistening cut of meat from a tray. He was new, too new for a Saturday night special, she thought. Angular jaw, close-cropped hair, a cool, distant expression. She frowned. The restaurant rarely put new hires on the main line when the owner was in the building, let alone on his personal order. "Hey, where's Louis?" Mia asked, glancing around for the usual grill cook. "Out sick," the new guy said without looking up. "I'm covering." Marco didn't correct him, didn't even comment. He just busied himself with another plate, shoulders tight, jaw ticking. A faint unease brushed Mia's spine, but the kitchen was always chaotic. People called out, equipment broke, staff swapped stations. She tried to shake off the feeling and stepped aside, watching as the steak hit the grill with a loud, satisfying hiss. The air filled with that rich, buttery smell that made guests close their eyes and savor before the first bite. Minutes later, when the timer beeped and the steak was moved to the plating station, Mia drifted closer to pick it up. The new guy moved fast, almost too fast. He drizzled sauce, sprinkled herbs, wiped the plate's edges with the precision of someone who'd done it 1,000 times before. But then, as Marco turned to shout an order, Mia saw his hand dip into his apron pocket and come out with a tiny, unmarked vial. Her heartbeat stumbled. It was so small it could have been nothing, a bit of seasoning, a finishing touch. But he held it like it mattered too much to spill even a drop. The liquid inside glinted pale under the kitchen lights. In one smooth motion, he tilted it over the steak, letting the faintest drizzle fall only on the meat meant for table 12. Mia's breath caught in her throat. "Hey," she said, the word too soft beneath the kitchen noise. He didn't look at her, didn't ask, didn't label it. He just capped the vial, slid it back into his pocket, and wiped the plate again, eyes cold and distant. When he finally glanced up, their eyes met. For a split second, she saw something that made the hair on her arms rise, not guilt exactly, but a kind of hard calculation. A silent question, "Did you see?" And a challenge, "What are you going to do about it?" Marco spun back around just then, clapping the man's shoulder. "Perfect. That's going to table 12. Make sure he gets it hot, Mia." "Yeah," she managed. Her voice sounded wrong to her own ears, too thin. "Table 12. She stared at the plate. The steak looked beautiful. The sauce gleamed under the lights. To anyone else, it was just another dish. To her, it was suddenly a question she couldn't avoid. "You're being crazy," she told herself. "It's probably just some fancy oil or reduction. New guy, new tricks. If you say something and you're wrong, you'll look paranoid. You'll embarrass Marco. You'll lose this job. Then what? No meds for mom, no school for your brother." Her chest tightened. She remembered another night years ago on a dark road when she had seen brake lights ahead of her swerve too fast. She had felt with the same cold certainty that something was wrong. But she'd been tired and late and scared of overreacting. She hadn't slowed down. By the time she did, the wreck was already there, twisted metal, shattered glass, sirens cutting through the dark. For months, she'd woken up hearing a single sentence in her own voice. "I knew something was wrong, and I did nothing." She looked through the pass window and saw Keanu in the corner booth, unaware. He was smiling at a little girl passing by with her parents, giving her a small wave that made her hide behind her mother's leg, giggling. No bodyguards, no security. Just him and a glass of red wine and a tired smile that said he finally felt safe in his own place. Safe. Her stomach turned. The new cook was watching her now, his arms folded, his expression cool. From the dining room, she could hear the faint buzz of conversation, silverware tapping, soft jazz drifting from the speakers. Everything normal, everything fine, on the surface. "Trust your gut, Mia," Keanu had told her a few days earlier when she'd apologized for making a tiny mistake on his order. "It's better to fix a problem early than pretend it's not there," he'd added with a little shrug. "In movies and in life." Her hand trembled as she reached for the plate. The ceramic felt heavier than it should, as if the decision itself had weight. "If I'm wrong, I lose my job," she thought. "If I'm right and I stay quiet, I might lose him." She swallowed hard, grabbed a blank slip from her order pad, and pulled a pen from behind her ear. Her fingers shook as she wrote, the letters slanting across the small square of paper. She didn't let herself think about it too long. Thinking too long was how you talked yourself out of courage. She folded the note once, twice, until it was small enough to hide between her fingers. Then she lifted the plate, pushed open the kitchen door with her shoulder, and stepped back into the soft glow of the dining room. Every step toward table 12 felt like walking a tightrope. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the soft music, all of it blurred at the edges. All she could see was him, sitting there in his own restaurant, trusting the world to be kind for once. Mia stopped beside his table, heart pounding so loud she was sure he could hear it. She set the steak down gently in front of him, the scent rising between them like a final question. His eyes lifted to hers, warm and tired and unsuspecting. She took a breath, felt the little folded note digging into her palm, and knew there was no turning back. "Sir," she whispered, her voice barely steady as she let the edge of the paper slip between her fingers toward his hand. "Before you take a bite, there's something you need to read." Keanu didn't look down at the note right away. Years of red carpets and strangers pushing things into his hands had trained him to stay calm, to move slowly when everything inside wanted to speed up. He kept his eyes on Mia for a heartbeat, long enough to see the fear shimmering just behind her professional smile, and he understood one thing with absolute clarity. Whatever was written on that tiny square of paper, she believed it mattered. He lifted his napkin as if adjusting it, slipping the folded note underneath. The movement was casual, almost lazy. To anyone watching, it looked like the most boring thing in the world. Under the table, hidden by the white cloth, he unfolded the paper with his left hand and smoothed it against his knee. "Don't eat the steak. I think someone put something on it in the kitchen. Please trust me, Mia." For a second, the words blurred. It wasn't shock so much as a sudden, heavy familiarity. Threats were not new in his life. Letters, strange packages, people outside hotels who loved him in ways that felt more like possession than affection. But inside this restaurant, inside the place he'd built so his staff could feel safe, paid, respected. His chest tightened, not from fear for himself, but from a hot, almost parental anger at the thought that someone had brought that darkness into this space. Into their space. He folded the note back up, slower this time, giving his face a moment to smooth. When he looked up, Mia was still there, her hands locked around her tray just a little too tightly. Her eyes begged him to understand without making a scene. "Everything okay with the wine?" she asked softly, voice steady for the guests at nearby tables. Keanu met her gaze and let one corner of his mouth lift, the smallest signal that he'd heard her, that he wasn't dismissing this as panic or drama. "Wine's great," he said, then raised his voice just enough for the nearest table to hear. "But I think I messed up my order, that's on me. I should have gone medium well, not medium rare. Can we fix that, or am I too late?" Mia exhaled so imperceptibly that only she felt it. He was giving her a way out, a reason to take the plate away without anyone suspecting. "Of course," she replied, catching the rhythm. "Let me take it back to the kitchen. We'll make it right." As she reached for the steak, their fingers brushed. Keanu pressed the folded note back into her palm. Her eyes widened a fraction, then she slipped it into her apron like it was just another receipt. He watched her walk away, slow and measured, every step a negotiation between terror and professionalism. Around him, the restaurant kept breathing. Forks clinked, glasses chimed, someone laughed too loudly by the bar. The world went on, oblivious, while a single plate of food left the table like a small, quiet bomb that hadn't gone off yet. Mia pushed through the kitchen door and was hit by the wave of heat and noise again. For the first time all shift, the clatter and shouting made her dizzy. She felt every eye that happened to swing her way, even if they weren't actually looking at her. "Problem with the steak," Marco called, chopping herbs with quick, heavy strokes. "Yeah," she managed, keeping her voice light. "He wants it cooked a bit more, my bad." The new guy at the grill turned his head just enough that she caught the sideways glance. It wasn't surprise. It was calculation, shifting in real time. Marco scowled, more out of pride than suspicion. "He said that, it was perfect." "He was being polite," Mia said. You know how he is." The reminder landed. Marco grunted, then jerked his chin at the plate. "Fine, fire another one. I'll handle it myself this time." The new cook's jaw flexed, the only sign that the plan, whatever it had been, had taken a hit. His hand went unconsciously to his apron pocket where the vial had been. Mia felt her heart start pounding again. Before he could say anything, a calm voice cut through the noise. "Marco, Mia." Keanu stood in the narrow space between the swinging door and the prep line, one hand on the frame, posture relaxed, eyes taking in everything. It was rare for him to step into the kitchen during peak hours. When he did, he usually joked with the staff, tasted a sauce, took a selfie if someone was brave enough to ask. Now, though, his face was softer, careful, like he was balancing two roles at once, owner and man who'd just been handed a terrifying secret. "Don't stop on my account," he said. "Smells amazing back here." Marco straightened, wiping his hands on his apron, pride wounded but eager. "Boss, I'm so sorry about the steak. We'll fix it right now. I should have been on it myself." Keanu shook his head, stepping aside so he wasn't in anyone's way. "It's not about the doneness. I just wanted to talk to Mia for a second, away from the ovens if that's okay." He smiled like it was no big deal. "You'll still get 5 stars tonight, don't worry." The relief on Marco's face was immediate. He nodded, already turning back to the line. "Take your time, we got this." Mia felt a cold sweat under her collar. If he pulled her away too long, if the new cook noticed, if anyone guessed. Her mind spun with a dozen worst-case scenarios. But when Keanu looked at her, there was such steady gentleness in his eyes that her breathing eased just a little. "Can you walk with me to the office?" he asked. "I want your opinion on something." She nodded and set the plate down at the far end of the counter instead of handing it back. The steak sat there, abandoned under the bright kitchen lights, looking ordinary and harmless and horribly wrong. They moved down the narrow hallway that led toward the manager's office, the noise of the kitchen fading with each step. The further they walked, the more Mia felt the weight of what she'd done pressing on her. She had crossed a line, accused an unseen danger without proof. If she was wrong, she had just thrown her career into a fire she couldn't put out. "Sir, if I overreacted," she began, voice tight. He stopped and turned to face her, cutting the distance in half. Up close, without the buffer of a table between them, he seemed both taller and more human. There were fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the kind etched not just by age, but by grief and laughter and the effort of carrying both. "First," he said quietly, "call me Keanu. We've rolled enough silverware together for that." A tiny smile ghosted across his lips, then faded. "Second, you didn't overreact. You trusted your instincts. That takes guts." Mia swallowed. "You didn't even see what I saw." "I saw your face," he said. "I've been around long enough to know when someone's scared for a reason and when they're scared for attention. You're not the second type." Something in her chest loosened, but it didn't vanish. She leaned against the wall, the cool paint grounding her. "In the kitchen, when they were plating your steak, the new guy pulled out a vial. No label, no explanation. He poured a little of it over your meat when Marco wasn't looking. It didn't go on any other plate, just yours." He didn't flinch or look away. He just listened, every word landing and staying. "You're sure it wasn't oil or a finishing sauce?" "The sauce was already on the plate," she said. "This was after. And when I noticed, he looked at me like he was daring me to say something. I've seen a lot of weird things in this job. That wasn't seasoning." Silence stretched between them. The hallway light hummed softly overhead. Somewhere in the distance, someone laughed in the dining room, oblivious to the conversation that suddenly felt like the axis of the entire night. "I've had threats before," Keanu said finally, voice low. "Most of them are just words, angry people behind screens. Sometimes it gets closer, a letter at the studio. A stranger waiting outside my building, but I always told myself we'd built this place different, that the kindness in these walls would keep that ugliness out." He exhaled slowly. "Maybe that was naive." "It's not naive to believe in good people," Mia said, surprising herself with the certainty in her own voice. "It's only naive to ignore bad ones when they're right in front of you." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded as if her words had clicked something into place for him. "Okay," he said. "We do 2 things. We stay calm and we stay kind, but we don't stay blind." Mia frowned. What does that mean? It means we don't cause panic in the dining room, he said. No one needs to know what we suspect, not yet, but we also don't pretend this is nothing and hope it goes away. He stepped closer to the office door and reached for the handle, then paused. Do you trust the cameras in the kitchen? Yes, she said. The system's new. Marco hates it, but we had that break-in last year, remember? I remember, he said. I also remember that those cameras saved a dishwasher from being blamed for missing cash she never touched. That's the thing about watching the truth. It protects the right people if you let it. He opened the office door and gestured for her to enter first. The small room smelled like old coffee and printer ink, with a hint of lemon cleaner trying its best to win. On the desk, the monitor showed a split-screen view of the dining room and the kitchen. Servers weaving between tables, flames leaping on the stove, plates moving across the pass. Keanu stepped in behind her and closed the door, the soft click suddenly sounding very loud. For the first time tonight, the world outside felt far away, reduced to moving pictures on a screen. Okay, he murmured. Let's see what really happened. Mia's eyes went straight to the feed from 10 minutes earlier. There she was, in grainy color, approaching the line as the steak was plated. She watched the new cook's every move with fresh eyes, heart thudding in her ears. Beside her, Keanu leaned in, face inches from the glass, his focus razor-sharp. There, she whispered, pointing, pause it. He tapped the keyboard, freezing the frame. On the screen, the cook's hand hovered over the plate, fingers curled around something small and pale that caught the light. Keanu zoomed in, the pixels breaking apart but the shape becoming unmistakable. A vial, clear and unmarked, tilted above the meat meant only for him. He stared at it in silence. Mia felt her mouth go dry. What do we do now? She asked, voice barely audible. His answer came slower this time, weighed down by more than just logic. Now we protect everyone in that room, and we figure out who wants me dead badly enough to walk through my front door to do it. Before he could say more, a sharp crackle cut through the quiet. The security monitor flickered once, twice, and then every camera feed went black at the same time, leaving them staring at their own reflections in a dark screen. Somewhere just beyond the thin office wall, heavy footsteps started moving down the hallway, steady, purposeful, coming straight toward the door.